R.L. Stine. I write the Goosebumps books.
Alright, boils and ghouls. You didn't see this shit coming, because I didn't either. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to watch, and then I saw on Tubi they added all 4 seasons of the Goosebumps show, and it's been a long while since I've done a video on a Goosebumps episode, which is a thing, by the way. I'll link the playlist at the end of this if you want to hear me talk about Night of the Living Dummy 3 for 50 fucking minutes. But I said, alright, I gotta do one. I gotta talk about one. I'm in the mood to go down a little nostalgia lane here. And this is Season 1, Episode 9 and 10, Stay Out of the Basement, Part 1 and 2. I remember this one pretty well, because it was one of like the most famous episodes and of the books too. Basically, this father of this family is a scientist, and he is doing experiments on plants in the basement. And he gives these 2 brathead kids of his just one job, one rule: stay out of the basement. And they can't even do that. And then they end up finding out there's some sinister things happening with these experiments in the basement that their father is conducting. That's basically as spoiler-free as you can get with this, but you really don't have to think too hard to see where this goes. So we got the daughter who's worried about her father, saying that he's not acting the same, and so conveniently throws out a piece of information that is going to be vital by the end of this story, that her father doesn't even call her princess anymore, and that the mom just says she don't really care. She just says he's under a lot of pressure, like under stress, don't worry, he's fine. She thinks everything peaches and cream. That's right. The mom is leaving. She's going, I don't know, somewhere on some trip. So she's just leaving the 2 kids alone with their crazy ass father, who's this mad scientist in the basement. So of course they go to get the father so he could say goodbye to the wife, and the first line out of his mouth is "stay out of the basement," the title of this episode story. And then he tells them, I just don't want you going in the basement. Now this is the 2nd time. He says it a 3rd time before leaving. And then, of course, like any kid would do, the first thing that these fuckers do as soon as his dad walks outside is they go right to the basement to take a peek inside. So Margaret, I forgot if I even mentioned her name, that's her name, and her little shithead brother, I don't know his name still. They're in the basement looking around, they see all weird plants, and then the father ends up coming back. And I shouldn't really even have to bring up the acting by anyone throughout this whole series, aside from a very small amount of episodes. There might be a good performance here and there, but for the most part, it's just your typical 90s young adult series acting. Especially the kid actors here. I mean, they're fine. It's not even worth, nor is it like, it's like mean in a way to even look through critical eyes today and analyze the acting in this. It's as irrelevant as if I dropped the unrigged true OJ verdict. We're all aware about the acting and the quality of it in this series. There's no reason to really bring it up. So the dad tries to explain to them what he's doing very vaguely without giving any real details to try to put their minds at ease so they'll stay out of the goddamn basement. She just knows that something's off with her father. It's sad in a way. Like, she makes breakfast the next morning after getting turned down, saying that we should watch a whole bunch of movies all night. We can rent movies and we'll have a whole night watching them. He's like, I'm too busy, I gotta work. It's sad, but in a sad way where you picture her on a stripper pole down the line because of all the daddy issues that already started here in this instance. But sad is sad. And the kid, the son, he doesn't seem bothered by anything. He's just playing his video game. It's like none of this matters to him at all. Then we get our first cliffhanger when the father finally comes upstairs, comes into the kitchen, ignores the breakfast his nice daughter made for him, and starts chugging plant food. And then he's chugging water. And then she sees this. And then she goes and he says, I'm not hungry. After she said, I made you breakfast, he goes back downstairs like a dick. And then, in a very comedic way that's not suspenseful at all, she ends up picking up the bottle and reading plant food. And then it cuts to a Tubi break. Alright, she calls her mom, who's away, to tell her that her dad was eating plant food. And she just says, I'm sure it has something to do with his work, sweetheart. It is so funny. The father actually gives a pretty damn good performance. He is pretty creepy at times, because we'll find out in part 2. Don't forget, we're still in just part 1 of part 2 here. So it would seem straight and easy to me. 1 step, stay out of the basement, boom, 1 episode, you're done. But we still have a whole second part to talk about here. So we've only discussed half of a 1-step process. But the night before, Margaret sees her father oozing like green fluid, like plant fluid out of the cut in his arm. And he's got plants like growing out of his head. So he starts explaining it the next morning. And he says that he's trying to do something very unusual, and he explains the cutaway and all of that just so stupidly, and they all fall for it. And he ends up revealing his plan, which is to make a plant-animal hybrid. And then, as soon as Margaret asks a question, he turns into fucking Mr. Robot, and I cannot answer anything else. Oh, the charm to this, it brings back a lot of memories, despite it being awful. And then he's all ready for breakfast this morning, and he ends up taking just green shit, the most unappetizing food ever. These kids are staring at in their bowls. This is food that you'd rather get yourself committed to a psych ward to get the food there than to eat whatever this is that he's trying to give his kids. We gotta start speeding this shit along so it doesn't turn into Night of the Living Dummy 3 repeat, because we're just entering part 2. We had a nice little riveting cliffhanger where some guy from the university that the father used to work at, because you don't work at the university anymore. He's just rogue scientist working in his own basement. So this guy comes over to check on him, and he has an argument in the basement, and the son's listening from outside, and the plant start coming to life and go to like chokehold him. It says to be continued. And I hope you guys enjoyed your ads via rapid thought processing. Welcome to part 2 of Stay Out of the Basement. So surprise, surprise, the father comes out of the basement outside, and he scolds both his kids and says, get the fuck up to your rooms. He doesn't say that. Get up to your rooms, you're grounded. And there is some cool lighting, like all the green lighting down in the basement when you see the father doing his experiments. That looks alright. That looks pretty cool, right? And this is when we find out that this is an imposter father, and that he has their real father locked up in the basement, locked up in some cabinet or some shit, some type of closet, and he is the plant-based imposter of their father. It's whatever. It's been done a million times, just like every R.L. Stine story has been done a million times before that. But don't worry, it still takes another 20 minutes or so for the kids to figure this out. Yeah, there's no reason for this to be 2 parts. Seriously, this is insane. Like, the boredom throughout this second half, just more of the same shit. And then finally she finds the wallet of the guy, whoever he is from the old university that the father worked at, and comes and has the argument with him. So he finds the wallet, or the daughter finds the wallet, and then for some reason, even though everything's plants in this whole episode, they take the sheets off one of the beds, and there's just a whole bunch of worms crawling all over the place for no reason. And then we get one of the stupidest lines. Right after the worm scene, Margaret says, I have to get to the bottom of this. And I have a feeling the bottom of this is in the basement. No fucking shit. I mean, I was thinking it was at the Sky Burger a mile down the road, but you might be onto something going down in that basement. Though I will say, some of the plant creatures in the finale here, when they go down and they see like the plant creatures with the human faces coming out, that looks cool. That holds up. And same with a lot of the plant effects, with the vines and leaves and shit moving around and grabbing them. That holds up pretty well too. Then that great foreshadowing from the very beginning comes into play. They find their father, the real father, tied up. Then you get that whole scenario when you have a copy of somebody and they're pointing, I don't know what it is, insecticide or some shit, plant killer, at both of them, and they don't, I'm your real father. No, he's a plant, he's a copy. No, he's a copy. All of that just for him to say princess and call her princess. And she knows that's the real father, sprays the shit out of the other one, and he melts away in a hilariously awful way. And then we get the final twist where this is what I always took from it, that wasn't really their father. And they killed the wrong one, because she goes, everything is fine in Tinseltown. The mom is laughing shit off and making puns about her kids growing like weeds. Knowing this whole thing that just happened, she's taking this excellently. What a great wife. And then they all go inside to make burgers, because none of them want anything to do with plants. And then Margaret, conveniently and just for the plot, she could have tied her shoe right then and there. She was leaned over on the steps, but yet she has to go to the side and put her foot back up to tie her shoe next to the flowers. And the flowers start saying, like, Margaret, it's your father. I'm your real father. And then all of them start saying it in different voices. So are they just fucking with her? But I always just took it as that they killed the wrong one, and that's still the plant imposter father, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter. But alright, everybody, that was fun. That was a nice little change of pace. That's Goosebumps, Stay Out of the Basement, Part 1 and 2. Hope everyone's having a great morning, afternoon, or night. I'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.
Thank you.